am live. Today is the 1st of October and I am reading still Greene's The Comedians. I'm in the second part of this book now, which plays largely in Haiti. They are Mr. Smith is one of the comedians. He is a presidential, or was a presidential candidate. Mr. Jones, who calls himself Major Jones. And the story is told by Mr. Brown, who owns a hotel in Port-au-Prince in Haiti. He tried to sell it, but nobody wants it because of Papa Doc and the regime, the corrupt regime on Haiti. We are here in the second part. It's the first chapter and it's Roman 5. I asked Dr. Maggiot to dine that Saturday in order to meet the Smiths. I wanted the Smiths to know that all Haitians were not either politicians or torturers. Besides, I had not seen the doctor since the night when we disposed of the body. I did not wish him to feel I had kept away from him cowardice. He arrived just after the electricity had been cut, and Joseph was on the point of lighting the oil lamps. He turned the wick of one too high, and the flames shooting up the chimney made the shadow of Dr. Maggiot unroll down the veranda like a black carpet. He and the Smiths greeted each other with old-fashioned courtesy, and it seemed for a moment that we were back in the 19th century, when oil lamps shone softer than electric globes, and our passions, or so one believed, were gentler too. I'm an admirer, Dr. Maggiot said, of Mr. Truman for some of his internal policies, but you will forgive me if I cannot pretend to be his supporter over the Korean War. I am honored in any case to meet his opponent. Not a very important opponent, Mr. Smith said. It was not specifically on the Korean War we differed, though it goes without saying I'm against all wars, whatever excuses politicians may find for them. It was for the sake of vegetarianism I ran against him. I had not realized, Dr. Maggiot said, that vegetarianism was an issue in the election. I'm afraid it was, except in one state. We polled 10,000 votes, Mrs. Smith said. My husband's name was printed on the ballot. She opened her bag and after a little search among the Kleenex pulled out a ballot paper. Like most Europeans, I knew little of the American electoral system. I had a vague idea that there were 2 or 3 candidates at the most, and that all voters everywhere voted for their presidential choice. I hadn't realized that on the ballot papers of most states, the name of the presidential candidate was not even shown, only the names of the presidential electors for whom the votes were actually cast. In the state of Wisconsin, however, the name of Mr. Smith was clearly printed under a big black square containing an emblem, which I think must have represented a cabbage. I was surprised at the number of parties. Even the socialists were split in 2, and there were liberals and conservative candidates for minor offices. I could see from Dr. Maggiot's expression that he was as lost as myself. I'm an English election. If an English election is less complex than an American, a Haitian is simpler than either. In Haiti, if one put value on one's skin, one stayed at home, even during the relatively peaceful days of Dr. Duvalier's predecessor. We handed the ballot paper from one to the other under the eyes of Miss Smith, who watched it as closely as a $100 note. Vegetarianism is an interesting idea, Dr. Maggiot said. I'm not sure it is suited to all mammals. I doubt, for example, whether a lion would flourish on green things. Mrs. Smith once had a vegetarian bulldog, Mr. Smith said with pride. Of course, it took some training. It took authority, Mrs. Smith said, and her eyes challenged Dr. Maggiot to deny it. I told him of the Vegetarian Center and of our journey to Duvalier. I had a patient from Duvalier once, Dr. Maggiot said. He had been working on the site. I think it was on the cockpit, and he was sacked because one of the tonton macoutes there wanted the job for a member of his family. My patient made a foolish mistake. He appealed to the tonton on the grounds of his poverty, and the tonton shot him once through the stomach and once through the thigh. I saved his life, but he is a paralyzed beggar by the post office now. I wouldn't settle in Duvalierville if I were you. It is not the right ambiance for vegetarianism. Is there no law in this country? Mrs. Smith demanded. The tonton macoute are the only law. The words you know mean bogeymen. Is there no religion? Mrs. Smith asked in his turn. Oh yes, we are a very religious people. The state religion is the Catholic Church. The archbishop's in exile. The papal nuncio is in Rome and the president is excommunicated. The popular religion is voodoo, which has been taxed almost out of existence. The president was a strong voodooist once, but since he has been excommunicated, he can take no part. You have to be a Catholic communicant to take part in voodoo. But is it heathenism? Mrs. Smith said. Who am I to say? I believe no more in the Christian God than I do in the gods of Dahomey. The voodooists believe in both. Then what do you believe in, Doctor? I believe in certain economic laws. Religion is the opium of the people, I quoted flippantly at him. I don't know where Marx wrote that, Dr. Maggiore said with disapproval, if he ever did. But since you were born a Catholic, as I was, you should be pleased to read in Das Kapital what Marx had to say of the Reformation. He approved of the monasteries in the state of society. Religion can be an excellent means of therapy for many states of mind. Melancholy, despair, cowardice. Opium, remember, is used in medicine. I'm not against opium. Certainly I'm not against voodoo. How lonely my people would be with Papa Doc as the only power in the land. But it is paganism, Mrs. Smith persisted. The right therapy for Haitians. The American Marines tried to destroy voodoo. The Jesuits tried, but the celebrations go on yet when a man can be found rich enough to pay the priest and the tax. I wouldn't advise you to go. She's not easily frightened, Mr. Smith replied. You should have seen her in Nashville. I don't question her courage, but there are features that, for a vegetarian... Mrs. Smith asked sternly, Are you a communist, Dr. Maggiore? It was a question I had wanted to ask many times, and I wondered how he would answer. I believe, madame, in the future of communism. I asked if you were communist. My dear, Mr. Smith said, we have no right... He tried to distract her. Let me give you a little more yeastro. To be a communist here, madame, is illegal. But since American aid stopped, we have been allowed to study communism. Communist propaganda is forbidden, but the works of Marx and Lenin are not. A fine distinction. So I may say I believe in the future of communism. That is a philosophical outlook. I had drunk too much. I said, as young Philippot believes in the future of the Bren gun. Dr. Maggiore said, you cannot stop martyrs. You can only try to reduce their numbers. If I had known a Christian in the days of Nero, I would have tried to save him from the lions. I would have said, go on living with your belief. Don't die with it. Surely very timid advice, Doctor, Mrs. Smith said. I cannot agree, Mrs. Smith. In the Western Hemisphere, in Haiti and elsewhere, we live under the shadow of your great and prosperous country. Much courage and patience is needed to keep one's head. I admire the Cubans, but I wish I could believe in their heads and in their final victory. So that was the end of chapter 1, and chapter 2 of the second part is to follow.